Hey everyone, this is Connor with AmateurHourMTG, bringing you a updated Yuriko Deck Tech video. I've recently made some changes and just want to kind of go over those with you guys here real quick. But first, I kind of wanted to introduce myself. This is probably the first time you've ever seen my face. My name's Connor. I've been playing Magic for a long time, probably since I was about 8 or 9 years old. Remember my dad and my uncle had a pretty large collection at that time, and so we would just go through and throw together some 60 card decks and play. I remember probably my favorite card back then was like Drudge Skeletons, if that kind of gives you an idea what kind of cards we were using. But yeah, Commander, I think I've been playing for probably about 7 or 8 years now. My first deck was Dimir, of course. Phoenix, the God of Deception. Wasn't a very good deck, but I enjoyed it, and it did what I wanted it to do. So, yeah, I think that's kind of what started my love for Dimir in a whole black-blue, was just that being my first Commander deck. And, yeah, Yuriko, I think I've been playing since she was out. Always just been a really good deck, a favorite of mine. Only recently really moved into the cEDH form, probably within the last 2 years. But you know, I'm always looking to tweak the deck and find kind of what cards are best used for her, and truly what I like to use. You know, some people might say there's certain meta cards that you have to run, but you know, find out what you enjoy and put it in the deck, and if it works, it works. So let's jump into the updated video, or updated deck tech. Like I said, I've made some changes from the last time I did my deck tech video, and just kind of want to go over those with you guys. So let's get started. All right, so first off, we've got Ornithopter. We're just going to go through the creatures here first. 0-drop flying 0/2. Kind of a perfect card for Yuriko. Again, you know, we kind of want to get these creatures out really early. That way we can try to get a turn 2 Yuriko out. And this does exactly that. This lets us not spend any resources to get a flying creature on the board and hopefully swing in on turn 2 and ninjutsu and Yuriko. Next creature, Changeling Outcast. 1 black Changeling. So a ninja. Can't be blocked and can't block. Pretty good card for Yuriko. Just an unblockable ninja. Fairy Seer. This is probably one of my favorite creatures in the deck. 1 blue flying. When it enters Scry 2, this is going to help you kind of determine either what your Yuriko flips are going to be doing, or getting you some better cards on the top of your library for you to flip into or draw next turn. Fourth Bridge Prowler. 1 black. When it enters the battlefield, target creature gets -1/-1 to end a turn. Excellent card for trying to get rid of what's that creature called? Of course, I'm drawing a blank now. Artifact creature. Every time somebody plays a non-creature spell for the first time, they get to draw. Esper Sentinel. There you go. Get rid of the Esper Sentinels, or any really 1-drops that you've been seeing really early on in the cEDH games. Ginger Brute. 1 generic haste, and then you can spend 1 generic, and it can't be blocked except creatures by haste, or except by creatures with haste. I found this to be pretty helpful, kind of mid to later in the game, just because there's not a lot of creatures that have haste in the cEDH format. So you being able to get this out, you know, tapping a mana crypt for it, and then using the other floating to give it haste, immediately swing and get a Yuriko trigger or another ninja trigger if you need to. So pretty good card there. Ingenious Prodigy. This is a new one that I've added from the Throne of Eldraine set. Really good card. It's 1 blue and X cost. It has Skulk, which means it can't be blocked except by creatures with equal to or less than power. And when it enters the battlefield, Ingenious Prodigy enters the battlefield with X +1/+1 counters. And then at the beginning of your upkeep, if it has 1 or more +1/+1 counters, you can remove 1 to draw a card. So early on, if we've got some extra mana that we need to put into something, we can put it right into this. Going to get us some early card draw, which is really good. And later in the game, if we really need to pump it up, we can, and just kind of help us get through our deck a little bit quicker. K9 Mark 1. This is one that I was kind of on the fence for, but I'll put it back in now just to kind of see how it works. I've been having some success with it, but 1 blue, as long as K9 Mark 1 is untapped, other legendary creatures you control have Ward 1. So that's going to give Yuriko Ward 1, which is really good. And then we can spend a blue and a generic to tap it and give target legendary creature can't be blocked this turn. So pretty good. Both things that we want for Yuriko. Move down the list here. Moth Dust Changeling. Tap an untapped creature you control. Moth Dust Changeling gains flying to end of turn. So this is a ninja that we can tap another creature to give it flying, which can help out if we've got Yuriko and this on the field and only a flying creature can get through. Tap Yuriko, give this flying, then we can swing in with this to get a trigger. Network Disruptor. 1 blue, flying. When it enters the battlefield, tap target permanent. So this is going to help us really get down the mana vaults, mana crypts, or excuse me, mana vaults, grim monoliths, you know, those big artifacts that cost money, or excuse me, cost mana to untap. And or we can tap a creature down to help us get in for attack and get some Yuriko triggers. Silver Raven, 1 blue, flying. When Silver Raven enters the battlefield, scry 1. So kind of just like our Fairy Seer up here, except we're scrying only 1. Still very, very good. Help us manipulate the top. Maybe we're trying to get a big flip off of a Yuriko trigger, or just trying to find, a card we need in our hand. Spygas Siren, 1 blue, flying. Spygas Siren enters the battlefield, create a map token. So the map tokens, truly this is just to generate an artifact to turn on Mox Opal if we have that in our opening hand or early on. But sometimes the map tokens can come in handy, help us explore. Again, try to look at the top card of the library, see if we need to get rid of that or put, keep it on the top for a flip. Thousand Face Shadow, 1 blue, flying, ninja. And then it's got 2 generic, 2 blue ninjutsu. When it enters the battlefield from your hand, if it's attacking, create a token that's a copy of another target attacking creature. That token enters the battlefield tapped and attacking. So this can be helpful depending on what creatures we have swinging out. One, for instance, and we'll get to a little bit later, but Roaming Throne. If we have this attacking and we ninjutsu this guy in for a different creature, we can then make another copy of the Roaming Throne, which is really, really good. And I'll get into that a little bit later. Universal Automaton, 1 generic, changeling. I had this in there, then I took it out. Now I'm putting it back in, truly just to help turn on Mox Opal, and it's a 1-drop ninja. Wingcrafter, it has Soul Bond, so when this enters, it's going to Soul Bond with another creature. As long as Wingcrafter is paired with another creature, both those creatures have flying. Just another way to give a ninja, evasion, or give Yuriko flying, just to maintain those triggers throughout the game. Dalthy Voidwalker. This is a new one that I've added. 2 black, has shadow. If a card would be put into an opponent's graveyard from anywhere, exile it with a void counter on it. And then we can tap, sacrifice Dalthy Voidwalker, choose an exiled card an opponent owns with a void counter on it. You may play it this turn without paying its mana cost. So the more that this guy's out, the more cards you're going to be able to put in exile with void counters and truly get to let you pick and choose kind of how the game goes from there. If the second a counter spell or something gets put in the void, everyone's worried about playing certain spells, because then you could just tap this guy and sacrifice him and cast a counter spell for free. But another added bonus is that he has shadow, so he's got some evasion. And 2 black's not too bad, but he can help kind of stacks the game out. You're going to help shut off those Underworld Breach lines, any really graveyard type of decks. He's going to shut those off for you, which is pretty helpful. Moon Circuit Hacker. It is 1 generic, 1 blue. Has 1 blue ninjutsu. Whenever Moon Circuit Hacker deals combat damage to a player, you may draw a card. If you do, discard a card, unless Moon Circuit Hacker entered the battlefield this turn. So truly what that means is If he swings and he's already been on the field, you're going to loot. You'll draw a discard. If you ninjutsu him in for a creature and he deals damage, he's just going to net you a card. You're just going to draw a card. Izumi Prowler, 1 black, 1 generic. He has 1 black, 1 generic ninjutsu. When he enters the battlefield, target creature you control gains Death Touch and Lifelink on a turn. So typically what I end up doing is just giving him Death Touch and Lifelink, or if somebody has blocked with their big creature, now I can give one of my little guys Death Touch to get rid of that. But just kind of give you some extra health and stuff like that, help you maintain your life total throughout the game. Orcish Bowmaster, this is a new card I've put in. 1 black, 1 generic, has flash. When it enters the battlefield, and whenever an opponent draws a card, except the first one they draw in each of their draw steps, Orcish Bowmaster deals 1 damage to any target. Then amass Orcs 1. So this deck is really, it's in a bad spot if somebody has an Orcish Bowmaster on. As you can see, just looking at some of the creatures we went through, so far only only 2 of them have more toughness than 1. Our Ornithopter and our Dalthy Voidwalker. So Orcish Bowmaster is pretty nasty against our deck. And this guy's truly in there just to kill other Orcish Bowmasters. But, if we have it in our hand and somebody plays a Windfall or anything like that, we want to flash it out and get a lot of those triggers. But just kind of an auto-include really in any black deck right now. He's just too good. Tetsuko, 1 blue, 1 generic. Creatures you control with power or toughness 1 or less can't be blocked. So kind of similar conversation we just had Orcish Bowmaster. Tetsuko, if you look at all the creatures we went through besides Ornithopter and Voidwalker, all of these are unblockable now. So pretty crazy. Really, really good evasion that we want to have. Thassa's Oracle, pretty straightforward. Enters the battlefield. Scry equal to your devotion to blue. If your devotion is greater than or equal to the number of cards in your library, you win the game. This combos off with Demonic Consultation. Easy win there. Miss Significant Naga, 2 generic, 1 blue. 2 generic, 1 blue ninjutsu. Whenever Miss Significant Naga deals combat damage to a player, create a token copy of Miss Significant Naga. This guy gets out of hand very, very quickly. The more times he does damage or the tokens deal damage, the more tokens you're going to get, and it can just spiral out of control. Mistblade Shinobi, 2 generic, 1 blue. 1 blue ninjutsu. When it deals combat damage to a player, you may return target creature that player controls to its owner's hand. If you have an unblocked creature and this guy ninjutsu's in, you're going to be able to bounce a creature to their hand, which is pretty good. Nashi's Moon Sage's Scion, 2 black, 1 generic. Has 3 generic, 1 black ninjutsu. Whenever Nashi Moon Sage's Scion deals damage to a player, exile the top card of each player's library until end of turn. You may play one of those cards. If you do cast the spell, pay life equal to its mana value rather than paying its mana cost. So this guy combos off with this card here, Enter the Infinite. So when we get this guy to hit, we want to try to have this card on top of our library. We're just going to pay the 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 life. We're going to draw all the cards out of our deck. And we've got enough free mana down here in our artifacts. And, we've probably got some lands up at that point still where we can just play Thassa's Oracle then and win the game that way. So pretty easy combo there. But if you don't have Enter the Infinite on top, he can just help you play some value pieces that you might find off of your opponent's library. So pretty helpful there. Prosperous Thief, 2 generic, 1 blue. Has 1 generic, 1 blue ninjutsu. Whenever 1 or more ninjas or rogues creatures you control deal combat damage to a player, create a treasure token. So if you swing 2, 3 creatures, maybe let's say you hit all 3 opponents with a ninja or a rogue. This guy's going to generate you 3 treasures. And him being ninjutsu, 1 blue, 1 generic, he's going to make a treasure himself as long as he gets thin, which is pretty good. So just help you get a couple treasures and stuff that you might need for later on in the game. This is a new one that I'm testing at this moment. Vendilion Click, 2 blue, 1 generic. has flash, flying. When Vendilion Click enters the battlefield, look at target player's hand. You may choose a non-land card from it. If you do, that player reveals the chosen card, puts it on the bottom of their library, then draws a card. So I've been finding a lot of people, just a lot of tutors, and really maybe you want to set up for a specific turn, a specific spell on your next turn, and you're kind of unsure of whether somebody has a counter spell for it. This is going to help you out with that a little bit. And it has flash and flying, so worst case, it is just a 3/1 flying creature that we can then ninjutsu back to our hand to continue to reuse its ability. It can be good early on if you've got the mana, but truthfully, we want to see this card mid to late game, just so we can continue to use that ability. Ingenious Infiltrator, 1 black, 1 blue, 2 generic, has 1 black, 1 blue ninjutsu. Whenever a ninja you control deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. Pretty straightforward. This guy is going to essentially net you a card every time a ninja deals damage, which is pretty good, including himself. Ninja the Deep Powers, 1 blue, 3 generic, has 1 blue, 1 generic ninjutsu. Whenever Ninja the Deep Powers deals damage to a player, you may draw a card. So similar ability like this guy, except only when he deals damage are you going to draw the card. Roaming Throne, okay. 4 generic. This one's a long one. Ward 2, when it enters the battlefield, choose a creature type. Roaming Throne is the chosen type in addition to its other types. If a triggered ability of another creature you control of the chosen type triggers, it triggers an additional time. So what we want to do with this card is when we cast it, we're going to name Ninja. This is going to come in, naming Ninja. It's going to become a Ninja. And now every time a triggered ability of a Ninja happens, it's going to trigger an additional time. What I mean by that is now if you have this out, now when Ninja the Deep Powers deals damage, you're going to draw 2 cards instead of 1. Whenever a Ninja deals damage to a player, you're going to create 2 treasures instead of 1. When this guy deals damage, you're going to create two token copies of him instead of 1. And most importantly, whenever Yuriko deals damage, or a ninja deals damage, instead of getting 1 Yuriko trigger per flip, you're going to get 2. So it's pretty insane card. And once it sticks, if it doesn't get countered, it's got Ward 2, so people need to spend 2 additional mana to destroy it with, or kill it, or get rid of it with whatever spell they're trying to use. Now keep in mind, the way that Ward 2 works is when somebody targets it, that spell goes on the stack, they then have to pay the 2, otherwise it's countered. It doesn't mean that the card goes back into their hand or anything like that. If they target it with a, Swords to Plowshares, and they only have 1 mana, they tap their 1 mana, them to Swords to Plowshares, the Roaming Throne, they got to pay 2, otherwise Swords just fizzles. So just keep that in mind. Sakashima Student, 2 blue, 2 generic, has 1 blue, 1 generic ninjutsu, and you may have Sakashima Student enter the battlefield as a copy of any creature on the battlefield, except it's a ninja in addition to its other creature types. So this guy can be very, very good. He can come in as a dockside and net you treasures. If you've got this guy in your hand as well, and dockside is netting you positive treasures, you can just loop these back and forth and keep having him come in as a dockside to effectively make infinite treasures. If you have maybe somebody has a creature out like, who am I thinking of? Kenrith. You can generate your infinite treasures, have him come in as a Kenrith. Okay, now you have infinite mana to do whatever you would like with the Kenrith. Or maybe you do the same thing and there's a Thrasios out, or a Kinnan. You can do infinite treasures, have him come in as a copy of the Thrasios or the Kinnan, and essentially win the game that way. So, very, very good card. And then, worst case scenario, he just comes in as a copy of the best creature on the field. So, maybe Italian, maybe you want to copy your Roaming Throne again, maybe you want a copy of who knows what, but very, very good ninja. Saprazin Legate. Hopefully I pronounced that right. It is 3 generic, 1 blue, has flying. If an opponent controls a mountain and you control an island, you can play Saprazin Legate without paying its mana cost. This is a creature that has a very high ceiling and a very low floor. You kind of need to look at and see what other commanders people are playing and what are the chances of them playing a mountain, for you to, decide if maybe you want this in your starting hand, maybe you don't. Last thing that we really want to be doing is spending 4 mana for a flying 1/3 creature. So just keep that in mind. We want to make sure we're paying no mana for this guy. So just pay attention to that kind of stuff. Subtlety, 2 blue, 2 generic. Flash, flying. When it enters the battlefield, choose up to 1 target creature, spell, or planeswalker. Its owner puts it on the top or bottom of their library. And it has Evoke, which means we can exile a blue card from our hand to cast this for free. And then once the triggered ability resolves, it does have to be sacrificed. This is good to get around things that people are playing that aren't counterable. For instance, if they're using a Cavern of Souls or the new Halfling, Delighted Halfling, and they're playing creatures that can't be countered, this card can stop that. They can then choose to put it on the top or bottom of their library. If they put it on top, it saves you an extra turn. If they put it on the bottom, for some reason, then it's on the bottom. But very, very, very good card. This has saved me a couple games. Street Wraith, 2 black, 3 generic. We're never paying the cost for that, ever. It has Swamp Walk. We don't care. The part that we care about is the cycling. We pay 2 life, discard this, draw a card. If we hit this off a Yuriko flip, we're dealing 5 damage, and then we're paying 2 life to draw a card. Pretty straightforward. Kind of, instead of you having a 99 card deck, including Yuriko, this kind of puts you somewhere, you could think of it as a 98 card deck now. Windcaller Aven. This is a new card that I'm testing out. 4 generic, 2 blue, has flying. Cycling, 1 blue, discard this card, draw a card. When you cycle Windcaller Aven, target creature gains flying to end a turn. So what we really want to be using this for is giving Yuriko flying. That way we can go in, get the Yuriko trigger, which is going to net us a card, but we're also going to draw a card just from cycling it. So I'm testing it out, and we'll see how it goes, but it looks pretty good. And then Shadow Immortality, 13 generic, 2 black. If your life total is less than your starting life total, the spell costs X less to cast, where X is the difference. So, we start with 40 life. If we are at 27, this is going to cost 2 black to cast. Then we have a 7/7 for 2 black, which is pretty good. But the most important thing is, when we flip this off of Yuriko, this is dealing 15 damage to each opponent. That's truly why that's in there. If you get a chance to cast it for the 2 black, great. And then if you'd like to play some Yuriko Bingo, what you want to try to do is use Submerge and put it on top of your library in response to a Yuriko trigger, if you have it out on the field, and flip it for 15. So pretty cool thing there. All right, let's move on to the sorceries. Imperial Seal, 1 black, search your library for a card, put it on top, lose 2 life. Again, this is just, we want to manipulate the top of the deck and put, like, Shadow Immortality on top to deal those big damage spells, or big damage Yuriko flips. Demonic Tutor, 1 black, 1 generic, search your library for a card, put it in your hand. Pretty straightforward. Nanojin Conversion, 3 generic, 1 blue. Choose target creature you control. Each other creature becomes a copy of that creature till end of turn, except it isn't legendary. This one is kind of interesting. It's from the new Doctor Who set. What we want to try to do here is have a good number of creatures out on the board, including Yuriko. Cast Nanojin Conversion, targeting Yuriko. Now, as long as that resolves, which I'll be honest with you, more times than not, it doesn't. So try to have some counter magic in your hand. But if that resolves, all the creatures we have out on the field are now going to become copies of Yuriko, including our opponents. That's one thing I think some people look over, but it turns all creatures on the field into a copy of Yuriko. Now what that means is if we have 4 creatures, we cast this, all 4 of our creatures are turning into Yuriko. Now, let's say the stars have aligned and somebody doesn't have any blockers. We swing all 4 Yurikos that we have over to that player. Each of those is going to trigger 4 times. We have 4 creatures, 4, 8, 12, 16. We now have 16 Yuriko triggers to resolve. With the way the deck is set up, more times than not, either you're going to kill the table with that, or it's going to give you enough card advantage that you're going to be able to maintain the board state until it gets to your next turn, and then hopefully you've got a way to win at that point. But 16 Yuriko triggers more times than not is going to kill the table. So, excellent card. Just be prepared that it's probably going to get countered. Don't lean into it very heavily, and if you do have it in your hand, try to have some, find some counter magic or something, that way you can set it up that way. Seagate Restoration. This is just a bolt land, which means on the other side of this, we can pay 3 life to have it come in untapped, and it just taps for a blue. But when we flip it off of Yuriko, it's going to deal 7 damage. So it's a land that deals 7 damage when we flip. You may find yourself at a point where you want to cast it. Draw cards equal to the number of cards you have in your hand, plus 1. You have no maximum hand size for the rest of the game. If you're at a point where you're casting this, you might be out of the game at that point. So, Temporal Trespass. 8, 9, 10, 11 damage if we flip this off the top. It has Delve. Take an extra turn after this one. Exile Temporal Trespass. So what we really want to do with this spell is flip it off the top, spend 3 blue, delve 8 cards out of our graveyard, take another turn, and yeah, pretty straightforward. Just gives us a little bit of extra gas when we need it, and it does big damage when we flip it off Yuriko. And then the Enter the Infinite, which is the card that combos with Nashi. Draw cards equal to the number of cards in your library, then put a card from your hand on top of your library. You have no maximum hand size till your next turn. So this, when we flip this off of Nashi and we cast it, we're more times than not going to win the game. Now, try to have some counter magic in your hand when you try to set this combo up, because it can get countered still. It's just like anything else. And we don't want to spend, 12 life for something to get countered. So try to just set that up properly. Or if it's early enough in the game, go for it. Maybe it'll stick. We'll move on to the instance. Pact of Negation, 0 cost, counter target spell. We just got to spend 5 mana on our next upkeep or we lose the game. Keep that in mind. Offer you can't refuse. 1 blue, counter target non-creature spell. Its controller creates 2 treasure tokens. Now, last thing you would really think we want to do is give another opponent treasure tokens, but we're truly using this to stop those game-winning spells. Things like Demonic Consultation, things like Underworld Breach, Lion's Eye Diamond if Breach is already out. Stuff like that. We want to really use it for those situations, not really to stop value pieces. Brainstorm. Excellent card for Yuriko. And I'll kind of go over briefly why. So, let's say we got 3 ninjas. 3 ninjas get through unblocked. We got Brainstorm in our hand. We've already manipulated the top and we've put Shadow Immortality on top. First Yuriko trigger goes off, we flip Shadow. 15 damage to everyone. 2 more triggers on the stack. In response to those, we cast Brainstorm. We draw 3, and then we put 2 back from our hand. Well, that gives us a chance to put Shadow Immortality back on top. Next trigger, we flip. It's another 15 damage. And then our next trigger will resolve, and out of our hand and the 3 cards that we looked at on top, the next highest CMC spell is going to be there. And this is really going to maximize your Yuriko damage, and you want to try to use it in that way. Now, in a pinch, we can look at the next 3 cards of our library if we need to find counter magic. somebody's trying to win the game, yes, but we really want to try to set it up so we're flipping for big damage, then putting it back on top with Brainstorm and flipping with that big damage again. Demonic Consultation combos off with Thassa's Oracle. You're going to name a card, remove the top 6 cards of your library from the game, and reveal the next card to all players. If the name card put in... Oh gosh, this card's a lot. I'll just briefly tell you what it is. You're going to name a card. You're going to look at the top 6 of your library. If it's not in the top 6, you keep going until you find it in your library, and you keep exiling all your cards. What you do is you name a card that's not in your library, you exile your whole entire deck, then you cast Thassa's Oracle. Well, you're going to scry equal to your devotion, and then your devotion is going to be at least blue, 2 blue. Well, you have no cards in your library, so then you just win the game. Pretty straightforward. Flusterstorm, counter target instant or sorcery spell unless its controller pays 1 generic, and it has Storm. If 5 spells have been cast this turn and you go to Flusterstorm somebody's spell, you have 5 copies of Flusterstorm to target either that spell or other spells on the stack. Keep that in mind. You don't have to have all copies target the same spell. If there's a stack of spells on the stack, you can target multiple spells with those Storm copies, so just remember that. March of the Swirling Mist, 1 blue and then X generic. As an additional cost to cast this spell, you may exile any number of blue cards from your hand. This spell costs 2 less to cast for each card exiled this way. And then you, up to X target creatures, phase out. Now, what this essentially is going to do is either clear the board for you to swing in and get maximum triggers. Maybe your Nanogen did resolve. Well, now you can exile everyone's creatures on one player and swing in openly. What this also can do is phase your creatures out in response to a board wipe. Somebody drops a Toxic Deluge and pays 6 life. All of our creatures are going to die at that point. What we want to try to do is phase them out. Everything dies. These phase back in at our next turn, and now we're free to do what we would like. What's super nice is the ability to exile a blue spell to pay for 2, which means every blue spell or every card we exile, blue card that we exile, we're going to be able to phase out 2 creatures. So if we exile 2 cards to this, we're phasing out 4 creatures. So pretty good card. Mystical Tutor, search your library for an instant or sorcery, reveal it, shuffle your library, put that card on top. This can help us put Enter the Infinite on top if we need to try to set up that Nashi combo. Vampiric Tutor, same thing as Mystical Tutor, except we can get any card, doesn't have to be an instant or sorcery, and we don't have to reveal it. So this again can help us with Enter the Infinite or Shadow Immortality. Cyclonic Rift, 1 blue, 1 generic bounce spell, pretty straightforward. The overload costs 6 generic, 1 blue. You may get there at some point in a game, and if you do, this can help you really kind of set the stage for you winning the game at that point. If you can Psych Rift everyone's stuff back to their hand on an end step before your turn, that's setting you up for success. Limduel's Vault, 1 black, 1 generic, 1 black, 1 blue. Look at the top 5 cards of your library as many times as you choose. Pay 1 life to put those cards on the bottom of your library and look at the next 5. So essentially what you're going to do is this can it's like a pseudo tutor, top of the library type tutor. You're going to look at the top 5 cards. You're going to decide whether you want to keep those on the top, or you can pay a life, put those on the bottom, and then look at the next 5. Pay a life, put those on the bottom, look at the next 5. So essentially what you're doing with this is you're continually paying life to look through your library and set up those top 5 cards either in response to Yuriko triggers, or maybe you want to do it on the end step and try to set up a win. Demonic Consultation, Thassa's Oracle type win, that kind of thing. But truthfully, what we're doing with this card is trying to set up the Yuriko triggers to deal maximum damage. Dismember, 2 Phyrexian and 1 generic. So 4 life, 1 generic is what we're going to spend for this. Target creature gets -5/-5 till end of turn. It is an instant, and pretty good removal spell. Fierce Guardianship, 1 blue, 2 generic. If we control our commander, we can cast this without paying its mana cost. Counter target non-creature spell. Force of Negation, 2 blue, 1 generic. If it's not your turn, you may exile a blue card from your hand rather than pay this spell's mana cost. Counter target non-creature spell. If this spell is countered this way, exile it instead of putting it in the owner's graveyard. Very nice counter magic spell. Deadly Rollick. If you control your commander, you may cast a spell without paying your mana cost. So similar thing with the Fierce Guardianship. Exile target creature. Mindbreak Trap. 2 blue, 2 generic. If an opponent has cast 3 or more spells this turn, you may pay 0 rather than play Mindbreak Trap's mana cost. Exile any number of target spells. So, kind of similar to the conversation we just had earlier with Subtlety. This is exiling the spells. This is not countering. So, this can get around spells that can't be countered. But the biggest thing is, we can hit any number of spells on the stack. So, if there is a big counter magic battle going between 2 players, and we kind of want to interject and say, exile this spell, this spell, this spell, this spell, we can do that. As long as somebody's played 3 spells, we play this for free. But the biggest part of it is it gets around spells that can't be countered. Snuff Out, 1 black, 3 generic. If you control a swamp, pay 4 life instead of paying its mana cost. More of the times than not, we're going to have the swamp and we're going to pay 4 life. Destroy target non-black creature, can't be regenerated. Just a really good removal spell. Contagion, 2 black, 3 generic. You may pay 1 life and remove a black card from your hand from the game rather than pay Contagion's mana cost. Put 2 -2, -1 counters distributed as you choose on 1 or 2 target creatures. So this is letting us kill 1/1s, kill a single 2/2, or maybe we want to stop somebody from dealing damage to us or anything like that. Just going to help you distribute those counters, which is pretty good. Nice little removal. Force of Will, 2 blue, 3 generic. Pay a life, exile a blue card from your hand rather than pay the mana cost. Counter target spell. Pretty iconic magic card. Very good in Yuriko. Misdirection, 2 blue, 3 generic. Exile a blue card from your hand rather than pay this spell's mana cost. Change the target of target spell with a single target. So this is kind of like a deflecting swat in a way, but misdirection, you can change the target of the spell. It's only spells, it's not abilities, so just keep that in mind. But overall, really good card. Submerge, 1 blue, 4 generic. If an opponent controls a forest and you control an island, you can play Submerge without paying its mana cost. Put target creature on top of its owner's library. Again, we want to try to just play this for free. We're not really trying to spend the 5 mana for it. So just keep that in mind. But yeah, like I said before, really try to submerge your own Shadow Immortality on the top. That's a pretty neat trick. Curtain's Call, 5 generic, 1 black. Has Undaunted. Destroy 2 target creatures. This is a new one that I'm testing out, and so far, the 2 times I've cast it has 100% been worth it. Undaunted, it costs 1 less for each opponent. In most cEDH games, when somebody tries to win, or when somebody is dead, or the game's about to be over, everyone's going to be dying. It's not just one player's dead. So more times than not, you're going to cast this for the 2 generic, 1 black, and you're going to destroy 2 target creatures. So you can just open the board up on somebody, kill both of their creatures, or you can kind of handpick which commanders you want to kill or creatures you want to kill. Maybe you want to kill one player's Thrasios and another player's Winota. It gives you the option to do that. Commandeer, exile 2 blue cards from your hand rather than pay the spell's mana cost. It is a big mana cost, 2 blue, 5 generic. Gain control of target non-creature spell. You may choose new targets for this. I've had games where I've done this early to steal somebody's Rhystic Study. It ended up being worth it. I've had a game where I've cast this and took over somebody's Overloaded Sightgrift. So it's a very, very good card just to be able to gain control of a non-creature spell. Consign and Oblivion. One blue, one generic. One black, 4 generic. So this is total of 7. When we flip this off Yuriko, we're dealing 7 damage. But we're truly only cost paying the blue and the generic to bounce a non-land permanent to somebody's hand. But pretty good card for Yuriko. Move on to the artifacts. Chromox, 0 cost artifact, exile non-artifact, non-land card from our hand. Taps for a mana of the exile's card's color. Mana Crypt, pretty iconic card there. 0 cost, upkeep. At the beginning of your upkeep, flip a coin, lose the flip, you take 3 damage. Taps for 2 generic. Mox Ember, 0 cost. Add 1 mana of any color among legendary creatures or planeswalkers you control. So I put this back in here because of this guy. He's legendary, so you can sometimes have this out early and be able to tap it. Your Tetsuko is also legendary, so keep that in mind there. Mox Diamond, 0 cost. When it enters, discard a land card. Taps 1 mana of any color to your mana pool. Mox Opal. So this has Metalcraft. It's 0 cost. We can tap it to add any color to our mana pool, but we can only activate this if we have 3 or more artifacts. This does count as an artifact, so you only need 2 other artifacts to turn this on. But if you look up here, Ornithopter is an artifact, Genderbrute's an artifact, Canine is an artifact, Universal Automaton's an artifact, the Spyglass Siren's going to create an artifact, Silver Raven is an artifact, Network Disruptor is an artifact. So we've got a lot of ways to turn this on early if we can find that in our starting hand. Grafdigger's Cage, 1 generic. Creature cards can't enter the battlefield from graveyards and libraries. Players can't cast cards in graveyards or libraries. So this is going to shut off your Winota player. This is going to shut off your breach lines your opponents are trying to do. Pretty much anything involving a graveyard or taking creatures from the library and putting them directly into the field, it can shut that off. Pretty good card, and it only costs 1. Cursed Totem, 2 generic. Activated abilities of creatures can't be activated. Yuriko is an activated ability, but since the card is in your hand, it's technically not a creature yet. So ninjutsu gets around this. So you're really only shutting off your opponent's stuff. We don't have really any activated ability of creatures at all. The only one that I think we would have, where is it at? The Canine, which we don't really care. More times than not, if we're shutting off the Canine with a Cursed Totem, our opponents are being hurt a lot worse. Imposter Mech, 1 blue, 1 generic. Enters the battlefield as a copy of a creature an opponent controls, except it's a vehicle artifact with crew 3, and loses all other card types. Now, the crew part we don't really care about. What we care about is we're creating a artifact copy of a creature an opponent controls. That then loses a creature type when we get it. So maybe we want to gain control or create a copy of Italian or a Bowmaster, something of that nature. That is now an artifact. It's not a creature anymore, so it's a lot harder to remove on our end than it is on the opponent's. And being able to do that for just 2 mana is really good. Null Rod, players can't play any artifact ability requiring an activation cost. This card will cause people to be very upset. Yes, it shuts off all of our mana artifacts, but more times than not, our opponents are really leaning into those artifacts a lot more than we are, specifically like a Kinnan player. This just shuts them off entirely. Excellent card to see in your starting hand if you can get it out early. A couple enchantments here. Bloodchief Ascension. I've been on the fence about this one as well. Taking it out, I put it back in now. It costs 1 black at the beginning of each end step. If an opponent lost 2 or more life this turn, you may put a quest counter on Bloodchief Ascension. Whenever a card is put into an opponent's graveyard from anywhere, Bloodchief Ascension has 3 or more quest counters. you may have that player lose 2 life. If you do, you gain 2 life. Truly what I found with this card is it keeps my life total up pretty high, especially when I'm getting targeted a lot, which usually happens with Yuriko for some reason. But it's it can really win you the game. I mean, anybody with like a breach line, any people that, you know, are just constantly swapping cards out in and out of their graveyard, you can just continue to have them lose 2 life. But the big thing is, whenever a card is put there, it could be put there from the library. It could be put there after they cast it. So if somebody casts a counter spell, that card's going to the graveyard. They're going to lose 2, you're going to gain 2. If somebody board wipes, all those cards, all those creatures on the field, if their cards are going to their graveyards. This can really help you whittle down people's life totals to get you closer and closer to winning with the Yuriko triggers. Mystic Remora, fish, 1 blue, cumulative upkeep of 1. Whenever opponent casts a non-creature spell, draw a card unless they pay 4. And then good old Ristic Study, 2 generic, 1 blue. Whenever opponent plays a spell, you may draw a card unless that player pays 1. And let's finish off with the lands here. So I have a very, very, very low land count. And the reason being is we're just trying to get turn 2 Yuriko. And that's really all that really matters is that. Ancient Tomb taps for 2 generic, but it's going to deal 2 damage for us. If we can see this early, this can help us get our Cursed Totem, our Null Rod, you know, those kind of things out early. Cephalid Coliseum, new one that I've added. Tap, deal for blue, deal 1 damage to you. But we can tap or spend a blue, tap it, sacrifice Cephalid Coliseum. Target player draws 3 cards and discards 3 cards. And if we have Threshold, we can only activate it if we have Threshold, which means we've got to have 7 or more cards in our graveyard. Now, what this is going to do is pretty much help us if we're looking for maybe some interaction pieces. Somebody's winning the game and we need to try to stop them. Or somebody has Thassa's Oracle trigger on the stack. They have no cards in their library. We spend a blue and we tap this and we force them to draw 3 cards. When they go to draw a card and they have no cards in their library, they just lose the game. So with Demonic Consultation, Thassa's Oracle, or excuse me, Tainted Pact, you know, those combos being as big as they are in cEDH, finding the right time to do this can really set players back and kill them. People aren't paying attention really to your lands. You may be able to sneak this in and kill somebody with it. And, you know, they have to have a stifle to stop it because it's an activated ability on a land. So, City of Brass taps for any mana, deals 1 damage to us whenever it's tapped. Command Tower gives us 1 mana of our commander's color identity, so black or blue. Drowned Catacombs enters the battlefield tapped unless we control an island or swamp. Taps for black or blue. Gemstone Caverns, this is your pregame card. If it's in your opening hand and you're not going first, you can put it on the field with a luck counter. If you do, you need to remove another card from your hand, but essentially gives you a free mana before your turn 1, which is really good. I've got 5 basic islands because Blood Moon does exist. Marsh Flats, search for a swamp or plains, aka just a swamp. Misty Rainforest, search for an island. Otwara Soaring City. The channel ability on this is very helpful. Discard Otwara Soaring City, return target artifact, creature, enchantment, or planeswalker to its owner's hand. This ability costs 1 less to activate for each legendary creature we control. So we have 3 in the deck entirely, the K9, Tetsuko, and Yuriko. So more times than not, we're going to have maybe one of those. Usually Yuriko on the field. So this taps for, or we can channel it for 2 generic and 1 blue. And very hard to interact with. It's an ability on a land, again, so need to have some sort of stifle. Polluted Delta, search our library for an island or swamp. Scalding Tarn, search our library for an island. Shizo Death Storehouse. I don't know why I didn't have this in the deck previously, but tap for 1 black, then we can spend a black, and tap it to give target legendary creature fear to end a turn. So can't be blocked except by creature black or artifact creatures, I believe is what fear is. So it just gives us some extra evasion for Yuriko or another ninja if we need it. One basic swap. Tainted Isle. Taps for a colorless, or we can tap for a blue or black only if we control a swamp. Just be careful with this in your starting hand. If you see this card and an island or something of that sort, this isn't going to tap for anything except colorless. You want to have a swamp on the field or in your hand, in your starting hand, if you're looking to keep a hand with this in it. Tekanuma, Abandoned Mire, taps for a black. More times than not, you probably won't use the channel ability, but it's there in the niche cases that you need it. We're going to mill 3 cards and return a creature or planeswalker from our graveyard to our hand. Costs 1 less to activate for each legendary creature we control. So this can get Orcish Bowmaster back. This can get, any other creature that maybe you are trying to get back out of your library back into your hand. Maybe you have the Nashi combo or want to set up the Nashi combo. You can do that. Maybe you really need to get Subtlety back. I'm not sure, but it's there if you need it. Underground River taps for a generic, and then taps for a blue or black, and it deals 1 damage to us. So similar to the Tainted Isle, except we're taking the damage from it at this point. Underground Sea taps for blue or black. It is an island and swamp, so we can search this up with any of our fetch lands. Verdant Catacombs, pay a life, sacrifice it, search for a swamp. And last but certainly not least, Watery Grave. Shockland taps for blue or black. It's an island or swamp, so we can again look for it with the fetch lands, and helps us fix our mana. So, but yeah, this is the current Yuriko list that I am on at the moment. I've been having some pretty good success with it. Truly, I don't really see a reason to do the aggro list anymore. It's good, but it's just not it, and it's fun. But the win rate on the aggro list just isn't there. So yeah, this is kind of a tempo/control list with some pet cards that I just really enjoy. But yeah, kind of let me know what your thoughts are. Let me know kind of what cards you guys are running in Yuriko at the moment, if you're playing Yuriko. And yeah, just leave your comments below. Hopefully you enjoyed the Deck Tech video. I enjoy doing these for you guys, and now you finally get to see my face. So there's that part, and yeah, we'll catch you in the next video. Thanks for watching, guys. Take care.